Hi everyone. Last class we have discussed about some of the basic techniques which are used in statistics, and we have defined some of the basic definition in statistics such as population, census, sample survey, and we had looked into some of the which are different methods of what are the difference between census and sample, and we had looked into what are different types of data collection methods. And primarily the data collection methods can be divided into primary data and as well as secondary data, and we have set the basic definition related to it. So present next we will define and we have also set some of the methods of collecting primary data, and the methods which included the direct investigation as well as indirect investigation, mailed questionnaire, enumeration method, like that things. So in the present section we will deal with some definition such as sampling. So what we actually do is that suppose we have a population, suppose that we have a population, and from this population suppose I take a small sample, and based on the information I take my I have my statistic, and here I have what we call it as parameter, and parameter. Then based on this sample I have some information, and that information we call it as a statistic, and this based on this statistic we say that the population characteristic is so is that thing. For example, suppose we have a class of 50 students where we take a sample of 5 students, and I calculate the average mark, and the average mark suppose that it was found to be around 50, then I conclude that the average mark of these 50 students is 50. Okay, based on the sample I say that the population characteristic is 50, that is the average mark is 50. So this is the thing which is going to happen in statistics mainly. Then we will say what are, this is the main outline what we had taken yesterday. So today we will define some of the basic terms which are related to statistics. Okay, so first I will start with don't worry, I will mail this definition to you, and we will start with the thing called sampling. Sampling is nothing but sampling is the process of selecting sample units from the population unit. So I have to select samples. These are my 1 2 3 4, these are my samples. I have to select this 5 candidate from 50 candidate. So this process is called as sampling. That is sampling. So let us write sampling sampling is the process of selecting sample units from population units. It is the basic definition of sampling. So I have said that there are three types of sampling basically. First one is judgment sampling. Another one is random sampling. Next is mixed sampling. So we will try to define these three sampling methods, and these are the basically these questions may be asked in your internal exams also, where you have to define these three sampling techniques. So So coming into the judgment sampling, what happens in this judgment sampling is that you have a basic idea on your population. That is, if you have your class, you have 50 students and you know all the marks of 50 students, and you take 5 students such that you take in such a manner that you take the lowest one and the highest one, and some 3 students in the medium range. It is the in this method the inclusion and exclusion of these 5 students is of that investigator's interest. So based on his or her interest, you include or you exclude these samples. So out of 50 you can choose 5 samples based on your interest. Okay, so this is the basic idea behind the judgment sampling. So we will write what do you mean by judgment sampling. Okay, so in judgment sampling, so it is first type of sampling, and in this method the inclusion and exclusion of a particular population unit to the sample depends on the interest of the investigator. Okay, so but this is not a scientific method. This is not a scientific method, but this method can be used in certain situations where if you have an idea, suppose that you have to take pre-election surveys, which are called as pre-election surveys, and in that you know that in a constituency one party has a majority, but so in that situation you take in most of the case there are one party will have a majority, and based on that you can say you can collect the information of those 5 candidates or for those candidates who are belonging to that particular category. So these types of sampling, but this type of judgment sampling is not a scientific method, but in some situation we can use judgment sampling, where I have set an example where in pre-selection or pre-election, so you can take like this. Okay, so next one is, as I have said that first one is judgment, next one is random sampling. So what happens in a random sampling is that it is more scientific method, and here each unit, in my home current has gone.